Welcome back. It's another month in the world of FPV, and that means it's time for another new product roundup and giveaway. Me and my co-host, It's Blunty, are going to go through new products that have come out in the last month, and then at the end of the video, we're going to give some of them away to you. Well, maybe you. How you doing this month, Blunty?
Good, Joshua. How are you doing this month?
I am, I would love to say I'm doing great, but I actually have been sick for the last couple weeks, and I'm still getting over it. But we're going to edit out all the coughing and sniffling, and you're just going to put my game face on, and we're going to get through it.
All right.
And we're going to start off, as we usually do, with our top products this month, and then we're going to go through some of the categories. And we have one real top product this month. A very useful device that has been out of stock so long, some people actually thought it was not going to be made anymore. But it's back.
Yeah, it's back, and people have been asking for it for a while. So yeah, it's cool. It's more expensive than it used to be, but that's okay. At least they were able to produce them again. I imagine parts shortages and all the other deals made this a little more difficult to get together. But yeah, so they've made a couple improvements. They've added an internal battery and internal attenuator so that you don't have to worry about adding the attenuator, and it's got the battery in there for you, all inside. But otherwise, it's the same. I think it's the same ImmersionRC power meter. Some of us know and love. I definitely have one of these. They're super handy for checking powers in the pits or seeing if your VTX is outputting properly, if you can't find the channel or something's weird, or, there's 100 different reasons why I randomly pull out the power meter and check something. So it's cool to have around.
I think we've buried the lead here a little bit by we've described it, but I don't think there's some people out here who don't know what this is. The ImmersionRC RF power meter is a inexpensive RF power meter that can be used, like you said, Blunty, to check the output power of your video transmitter and check whether your antenna is outputting power as it expects. What's so cool about this is that RF power meters usually are lab-grade equipment that costs like thousands of dollars or more. And what ImmersionRC has done is create a relatively inexpensive one that is accurate enough for day-to-day use. I think the biggest place that I use these, Blunty, is when I'm not sure that my video transmitter is, like, it says it's outputting 800 milliwatts, but my range feels really short. And so I hook this thing up to it and I see if it's like, it might say I'm outputting 650 when it was supposed to be 800. And I'm like, well, okay, it's not lab grade. But if it says I'm outputting 200 and it's supposed to be outputting 800, I'm like, yeah, something's wrong.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's really good, especially for side-by-side comparisons or something. If you got one quad that's working great and you've got good video, you've got another one that has bad video or something, it's great to compare between them and see, like, hey, these are both on 800. What are they showing? And it's got its own little antenna. You can even walk 5 feet away and see what it's reading from both. And yeah, it's super good little kit, especially for the price, like you talked about. It's not lab grade, but lab grade equipment is going to cost you, I think, 10 to 20 fold somewhere in there, and you have to know how to use it. So this is a great thing for the price and for the opportunity.
Yeah, you'll also see race directors. They'll go around with and you can hook it directly to the VTX with a cable, or you can use the little wand antenna that comes with it, and the race director will just hold it next to your quad and see if you're at about 25 milliwatts or if you're blasting too much power. So super useful, well worth $100 if you're looking for like something to just like supplement your toolkit. Not a must-have, but very, very nice tool, and it's finally available again after years and years of it not being available. So excellent. All righty, Blunty. Where should we go from here then? Which category should we take a look at first?
Let's hop right into flight controllers and ESCs and AIOs and all that business. I mean, we've got quite a few for you this week, or this month, rather. The first one up is the Happymodel Pancake AIO. There's a new Happymodel 5-in-1, basically, or sorry, 4-in-1, but it's the other 4-in-1. So we're used to, like, a lot of the 4-in-1s they do, or 3-in-1s they do, like have ESC and then flight controller, and then they'll add like the receiver or the VTX or something like that, right? We'll have different combos of all those things. But this has got basically everything except the ESC on this guy. So you've got a built-in open VTX, you've got a built-in ExpressLR SRX, and you've got your F4 AIO. So it's similar to like a almost like a Happymodel Fusion on top of an AIO sort of deal.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of times when you think Happymodel AIO, you think of a Cinewhoop board. And a Cinewhoop board would have ESC, flight controller, VTX, and receiver in one, like the Happymodel Diamond board. This looks like it's more for larger quads where you're going to have a separate ESC, but this is everything else you would need. That's pretty slick. And at a price of $50 is pretty freaking reasonable. My goodness. What's the output power of the VTX? That's kind of a big deal.
400 milliwatts. So it's not like you're not going to put it on anything huge, but 400 is not bad, especially for like maybe like those 2 or 3 inch park flyer kind of things. Like I could definitely see something like that.
You're going to feel the limits of 400 milliwatts on like a 5-inch, but on a little 3-inch, you could where this size is going to really make the biggest difference. You're going to do okay. That's really clever, and frankly, at that price, it's got a lot going for it.
It is, I think, maybe a little more niche just because they picked the 20 by 20 and the 30 by 30. I kind of think like it almost fits for a toothpick, sort of, but I guess on toothpicks you're trying not to do a stack, so it sort of depends on how you're trying to design, but.
Now, we got to acknowledge this has an SPI-based ExpressLRS receiver, which I've got a video about why that's not the best. Basically, it means that ExpressLRS is just now in the process of releasing ExpressLRS V3, but the SPI-based receivers will not easily be able to update to ELRS V3 because it requires someone to sort of bake all that code into Betaflight, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, so there is a PR for that. It's just a low-feature PR. So that will be added to Betaflight. It's just a low-feature version of it. So you will be able to bind to it, but it won't be for a while, and it won't be fully featured like you would expect.
Well, is that going to require us to wait till Betaflight 4.4 comes out, or is that going to be integrated into like 4.3.2?
I'm not 100% clear on that. I believe we have to wait till 4.4 comes out. I believe that's how it's going to work. But I mean, I assume you could flash RCs like we did before. I'm not sure exactly how all that will work out. But
well, and Betaflight 4.4, I've heard, is actually planned for like November.
November 1st will be the feature freeze. So then we'll start seeing RCs at that point. I think we should see. So
okay.
I think before that, you would have to flash a nightly to get 3. And then after that, you'd have to flash an RC to get 3. I believe that will be the case. And then but by January, February, we should have a fully 3.0 compatible SPI build of Betaflight. That's my understanding. It just won't be like, you'll be missing features. So you'll have like standard erase telemetry. You won't have to like rebind. But you'll only get the old rate. You won't have like the 1000 or the D500 or like, the new features basically will not be there. The Wi-Fi Betaflight configurator thing that people like won't work, like stuff like that.
So if you were to get a board like this with an SPI receiver, then you probably would just keep running ExpressLRS V2 until the January-February timeframe. I guess the big limitation would be if you have some boards with normal ExpressLRS receivers and you want to try the new features. And then you have this board, which is stuck on V2, unless you want to fly nightly builds and so forth.
They talked about building in a mode only to bind to SPI2, but I believe that I don't know that that's going through now that Phobos has updated Betaflight PR for 3. Okay. So it is all in limbo, though, I believe.
Well, anyway, still looks like a pretty decent piece of kit for this specific application and at a really, really good price. We got a flight controller here from FPV Cycle. Now, FPV Cycle doesn't make these flight controllers. I think Bob decided to stop making flight controllers sometime back. But what they do is they release the sort of specs and requirements, and then other manufacturers make the FCs. And here we've got the TuneRC Poly F405. What makes this stand out to you, Blinty?
So the big things they point out is, we've got 5 full UARTs. So that's pretty big for an F4. At least we've got all 5, TX and RX pairs available. It's going to ship on BlueJay, which is pretty nice. It comes with 4 additional motor outputs, so 8 motor outputs on the AIO. And then, it's got a black box built in, which sometimes you have a problem with on the AIO.
8 motor outputs, as in this board alone can run an octo? Or it has signal outputs for 8 motors, but only...
signal outputs for 8 motors.
I see.
Yeah,
so if you had another, if you had another 4-in-1 ESC, you could run an octo by driving 4 motors off of this guy and then 4 signal wires to the other ESC. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Just a lot of those are all kind of features that you don't necessarily get with all AIOs. So kind of a little extra feature set that they've decided to highlight.
All right. Well, that's pretty slick.
Also, he points out that if you burn your ESC on an AIO you normally can't use, the AIO anymore. But this one, you could add a 4-in-1.
Right, because you don't have separate motor outputs on most AIOs. But with this one, you could use those motor outputs to drive another ESC, and your flight controller is not ruined. That's kind of cool. Next up, we have a new flight controller. Well, new. It's a new version of the Speedybee F7 flight controller and ESC. This has always been a really full-featured and pretty good quality flight controller, a very flexible pad layout, got built-in Wi-Fi or Bluetooth for the Speedybee app, of course. There was an issue a while back with the Speedybee ESC blowing up, but this is not that.
Yeah, the V2 and the the V2 and the V2.1 had the issue. They released a V2.2 and new firmware for the other ones that they said fix that. So hopefully they're all away from all that.
Now we got the V3, so
yes,
lots of little pads to solder to here. We've got 8 motor outputs, lots of UARTs, and just generally a pretty good quality and full-featured flight controller. So we want to get that out there. What's flagship about it? F722.
I got to say, some of these features, 33% faster wireless firmware flashing. That is not a feature.
Well, considering that really only Speedybee devices can do the wireless flashing with the Speedybee app, the fact that it's 33% faster, I guess, is faster than no one else, I guess. That is a feature worth mentioning, though. If you have the Speedybee app, you can connect to any flight controller via Bluetooth to configure it. But with Speedybee flight controllers, you can actually flash them wirelessly, and that's kind of cool.
You could save 3 minutes a month.
Very important. Built-in LED plugs, similar to what Diatone has done.
Oh, they even built in TVS diodes. They did everything here. Basically, they put a giant capacitor in there and TVS diodes. And,
1,500 microfarad capacitor built onto the board.
I think
that's actually really nice.
I think Mad's Tech's slogan was everything but the kitchen sink, and I definitely kind of agree with that because they basically got everything on this thing.
Plugs on the underside. Presumably it comes with plug headers, but if you want a no solder bill, well, you're still probably going to solder to your receiver and maybe your VTX, but if you want to be able to change parts by plugging things in, it's got plugs for the major functions. It's pretty decent. 8 motor outputs. Yeah, it's pretty decent. $125 for the stack. So next up, we've got a new vendor being sold by Newbie Drone. I confess I've never heard of this company before. This is the NeutronRC H7BT, and it looks like a pretty full-featured flight controller. Got a Bluetooth interface, so you can use the Speedybee app to configure it wirelessly. Your basic assortment of UARTs and so forth. Got some plugs here for 2 ESCs. So you can use it with an octo if you want. Anything else about this jump out? They got 2 gyros, 2 BMI gyros. Can do sensor fusion. I don't think Betaflight sensor fusion is actually that useful. But it is nice to have a second gyro if your first one craps out.
Runs Beat Flight?
Where does it? Was it runs Beat Flight? Yeah. I'm sure that my... I'm sure that my Chinese spelling would be no better. 12-volt 2-amp regulator for your video transmitter.
Yeah, with the VTX switch. Dual camera inputs, if that's something you want.
Dual camera
so that's
inputs.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot of different features on this board.
Barometer on board?
$70 for an 8.7 is a pretty good price.
That's what made this one jump out to me, Blunty. It's super full-featured. Bluetooth, barometer on board, dual gyro. It's super full-featured. And it costs $70. Is it like good or is it crappy? I don't know. I've never heard of NeutronRC before, but I thought it was worth your attention. The other one is the NeutronRC F745 AIO, which is a all-in-one with a 55 amp ESC. And this one, I hesitate. I want to get it out there that it exists, but boy, I hesitate because these AIOs are very challenging to make reliable. And they're expensive as shit, $140. And without knowing who NeutronRC is and what their manufacturing quality is, I probably would hesitate and what would you want to buy instead of this, Blunty, if you were looking for something like this?
At this size?
Yeah, it's 25 millimeter mounting, toothpick mounting.
Well, the old answer was the Beast. I'm trying to think of what's out right now that you could use otherwise.
Is the Beast F7 not available?
Yeah, but there was some other board that came out, but I don't remember what it is. We definitely talked about it.
Here's the Beast F7 55 amp V2, $109 in stock at iFlightRC. It looks pretty comparable.
Not in stock. Scam.
What? It didn't say sold out.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, if it was in stock, it looks pretty comparable. BMI 270 gyro, 55 amp ESC, and generally, I think a better track record, although none of these AIOs have a perfect track record, especially if you're going to run it on like 6S 5-inch. If you're running this on a little 3-inch, it's pretty solid. But you're just taking a real punt when you go with an unknown vendor, because it's so easy to build these things in a way that makes them fry. So, nevertheless, there it is. Well, alrighty, that's the end of the flight controller and ESC section. Next up, we're going to look at frames, and there's only one frame this month that we wanted to call out, and it's the new Lumenier QAV-Pro Cinequad Edition frame kit. And Blunty, we talked, I wanted to put this in here because we talked about Cine frames on my live stream yesterday. And somebody asked about the Holy Bro Cinelifter frame. It's like $200. I was like, $200? That's pretty reasonable for a cinematic. Everything cinematic is expensive. And I said, how does it compare to the Shendrone's frame? And the Shendrone's frame was like $350. And I was like, see, the Holy Bro one is a bargain. And then I looked at this. I don't know what to make of this. It's $1,000. That's just for the frame. That's just for the frame. I mean, like, it's all this stuff, but it's basically just the frame. I don't know, man. That's something.
So when you were comparing Shendrones and stuff, I guess you were comparing stuff that can carry the Red 6K, like the same capacity? Is that what we're talking about?
I think so.
Okay.
I looked at the Sicario, I believe. Like, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because if I'm way off base, right. Like the Sicario, that carries like a Komodo, right? It looks like a similar, like, what's next up from the Sicario? The Thick? Should I have been looking at the Thick? That's $230. Nope. Okay. That's cheaper.
Yeah, I think it's just different scale. That's odd.
Yeah. So this is it's a hell of a beautiful frame. But man, Get FPV or Lumenier have got some nerve. They're like, yeah, you know what? We're just going to come in at $1,000. It's got to be real good for $1,000. Maybe it is. They're going to reach out to me now and be like, well, if you'd like to try it, we can. And the thing is, I don't do Cinema Pro stuff. I don't fly Cinelifters on set. So I don't maybe there's things about this frame that a pro like Paul Nurkala would go, oh yeah, this thing is amazing. And I would just be like, I don't know. Yeah. But, so unfortunately I'm not really in a position to say, but it's a cool frame, but it's a lot of freaking money. Anyway, that's new this month, such as it is. Next up, let's move on. We've got a ton of bind and fly quads. Let's see. Which one do you want to start with, Blunty?
I guess we could just start with the Driblet.
Okay, I confess I put the Driblet on here. This is a new 2-inch from Rotor Riot. It's not new. The Driblet has been around for a long time. I actually remember way back at the first quad camp, it was when the tiny little 2-inch Emax. Well, which one was that? Do you remember? Is a tiny little 2-inch Emax bind and fly, and it had just come out, and we were flying it and thought it was good, and Drew really liked it, and he went back and he came up with the Driblet as his sort of iteration of that. But ever since he went digital, he hasn't flown it anymore because you can't really easily get a DJI video transmitter in something this small. But the Avatar video transmitter is a little smaller, and so it was an opportunity for him to go back and re-examine it. And now we've got the Driblet S available with Express LRS receivers. Isn't that nice? So there you go. Flies okay. It's a 2-inch, but it flies okay. And they are doing the solder-free. So if you need to replace anything, you can do it without soldering. So it's pretty slick.
If you get FreeSky.
It's only solder-free with FreeSky. They won't send you like an Express LRS receiver. You can get it pre-built with an Express LRS receiver, but I guess it's soldered on then.
It'll be soldered, yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. Looks like Rekon has some new Rekon binder flies.
You know, I keep trying to throw to you, but I think I put all of these on here. I was like, let's let Blenty pick the one he likes. I don't actually think you added any of these, did you?
I did not.
Oh, crap. All right, well, trying to just be polite and throw to you instead of taking all the intros. We got two new quadcopters from Rekon here. Is it Rekon? I always say Rekon. It's Rekon?
I would assume that's why they...
Makes
maybe
sense.
not, but yeah.
No, I think you're right. These are the Rekon 3.5. We originally saw the Rekon, I think it was a 3-inch. The cool thing about these guys is that they run off of 18650 cells. Used to be a single 18650 cell. Then they had two 18650 stacked top to bottom. Now they're side by side. It is kind of cool to be able to just plug an 18650 in there like a AA battery and go fly. The performance has not been great, but this takes it up to a 3.5-inch prop, so maybe that fixes it a little bit.
Yeah, this is another Dave C. You know, he did the Rekon branding and stuff, and yeah, he basically just says that this is kind of his original goal, but he couldn't get this to work before because the electronics weren't reliable and stuff. But yeah, he's been able to make this work, and this is kind of his ideal build for the setup. So pretty cool.
So in a way, this is the ultimate sort of evolution of Dave C's Rekon
Nano
plan.
long range project.
Nano long range. Yeah. The big weakness of these builds to me has been durability. Their arms are very thin, the frame is very thin, and they're just not very crashable. And presumably that's just a consequence of me needing to make them very light. And if you want to be able to fly something like this, you just have to not crash it very hard. But it is pretty cool to be able to just get out there and fly with something like this. Definitely make sure you get high discharge 18650 cells, because if you just get some cheap ones, you won't get any flight time and it'll sag out.
Yeah, when you order them, you got to make sure they're not Lion.
Yeah. I actually have a review of the earlier iteration of the 2S 3-inch version, I believe, and I'll put a link to that in the video description if you want. It's not exactly this, but it's something. This is probably better because I bet the 3.5-inch props do better than the 3-inch in terms of flight time.
All right, what's up next, Joshua?
Oh, you're gonna throw to me? Oh, sure. Well, next up we've got the DarwinFPV Tiny Ape Freestyle. The DarwinFPV Baby Ape is a 3-inch, really inexpensive, decent flight performance. This one is a 2.5-inch version, and I thought the 3-inch Baby Ape was pretty impressive. So maybe the 2.5-inch is worth a look as well. I think the biggest weakness of the Baby Ape for me was the camera was really bad. But other than that, it flew really well.
This is pretty cheap. Definitely, I think that's where they're going for, right? That's their main goal. You can pick up a quad for 130. That's all put together with the receiver and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
You really can hardly buy the components for this price. 600 milliwatt VTX, Blue Jay all-in-one, Blue Jay ESC, Express LRS 2.0 pre-installed. Haven't flight tested it, obviously, but the 3-inch version was pretty solid.
We're seeing a lot more Blue Jay being flashed to these boards. I'm hoping that they're tuning the startup power and stuff, because out of the box, sometimes the Blue Jay cannot push the motors. I don't know. It's starting to concern me with the amount that we're seeing that are flashed. I just wonder if anybody's changing those settings. I'm concerned that people are going to get ESCs and think there's something wrong with the ESC. when really all they need to do is change startup or ramp up, right?
Surely the damn thing will fly out of the box, right?
I would hope so, but I don't.
I guess you can't.
FPV companies have never made it a rule, in my experience, to test something before they send it to you. Unfortunately.
All righty. Well, that's really that's unfortunately true. Yeah. The other one that I think is probably one of the biggest releases this month is the new Emax Hawk. And I got to tell you, Emax, like, their bind and flies are so consistently good. You know, they started coming out with the little 2-inch one, the name I couldn't remember. They came out with the Baby Hawk.
Tiny Hawk Freestyle.
The Tiny Hawk Freestyle, Tiny Hawk. I think it was the original one was the Tiny Hawk.
Well, that was the Whoop version. And then the Tiny Hawk Freestyle was the one where they took the ducks off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there's the Baby Hawk, which is a step up. Yeah.
That's like a 95 millimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've always impressed me. And then they had the Emax Hawk, the 5-inch racing drone. And they're just all so good in terms of their flight performance, in terms of their build quality, and just in terms of their value.
The one thing I'll say, the only issue I've ever had really with the Emax lines are the proprietary flight controllers. And they changed that in some of them, but I know like the Tiny Hawk, I believe, still comes with a Tiny Hawk shaped flight controller that is Tiny Hawk specific. And that's like the only concern I have. But as like a starter drone, they're still really nice. They obviously use Betaflight. Sometimes you get these cheap drones that don't even do that and stuff. So
yeah,
overall,
the motors,
I think they're
the motors. I think some of the motors have weird mounting. Not the 5-inch motors, but they're micro motors. They have a non-standard 3-screw mount, which means you can't really put third-party motors on them. Yeah. But here is the new Emax Hawk Apex 5-inch. It's a racing drone. The Emax Hawk 5-inch, I was super impressed with it way back when it first came out. I reviewed it. This one's got HD0 on it. So you want to get into HD0 racing? Boom. Here's a bind and fly with HD0 on it. And your choice of receiver. Yes. Yes. Express LRS or nothing. F you. Oh, 429. That's the world we live in.
Do you think Impulse RC is going to be upset at the name?
Oh, because they called it the Apex.
Yes.
Hawk Apex. I guess people are going to probably know the difference, but good point. It's weird that they have 6S with 1600 kV for a racing drone. You would normally see a racing drone at like 1900 to 2100 kV on 6S.
That's true. That's true.
That's a little strange. Generally, though, that's not what makes you lose races. So it's probably not going to be a deal breaker. But 2004 motors? I'm sorry, what? That's why they're 1600 kV. That is a tiny motor.
Yeah.
2004. That's like, is this a 5-inch?
Oh. They like copy. Huh. There's a 3.5 and a 5. So
that can't be right.
What size is the 3.5?
It just says 3000 kV. It doesn't have a size. Surely the size is here. 2004 on the 3.5. So surely they're not.
That was what I was curious about. The 5 is also 2004. Says that in the same paragraph.
Yes, it's Oh, that's a problem. No. I'm not happy with this. The problem is that if this is ultra light, it can fly very well. Like if it's down around 250 grams, it can fly very well, like the Omegod 250. But I don't think it's 250 grams. Do we have a weight?
It seems like a very weird decision.
The other problem is going to be the durability of those 2004 motors is garbage. I mean, just because they're so thin and light, the 2mm shaft is going to break. And if we were talking about something like the Omegod 250, whose goal is freestyle and you're going to do your best not to crash, and I guess if you break a motor, tough cookies. When you're going into racing, you're going to be beating the hell out of the thing all day. You're going to break motors. You absolutely can't be racing a 5-inch on 2004 motors. That's a really weird decision. That's a really weird decision.
Yeah, I don't understand that. So,
no, I don't know if I would say this is a total deal breaker for the whole thing. But given if you actually want this as a racing drone, you're going to be replacing motors all the time on race day. because you're just going to break a lot of motors. It probably flies okay, but the durability is a no-go for me. So get the 3.5-inch version, where 2000. This is actually probably the winner then. 3.5-inch props, 2004 motors just fine on 3.5-inch props. HD0 on board. That's the one.
So the 3.5. It looks like the 3.5 version with analog with a 650 is 250 grams. So the 5-inch is going to be, you know, a decent amount more than that. So
350 grams. Yeah. That's a weird choice. I wish they had used like 2205 motors, you know, 2104 maybe. But at this weight, those motors are going to struggle. At a weight of around 250 grams, those motors and props are going to fly great, but not be very durable. At this weight, I think they're going to struggle.
It does feel odd to like put it in a racing drone category. I guess that's the problem, right? It's like if you just said this is like a Hawk Apex bind and fly, but you didn't say it was a racing drone. I feel like there'd be a different idea behind it. We might not be so pissed off at like, you know, the idea of like, why are you putting 2004s on here and why are you saying it's racing?
You know,
and like,
I'm gonna see, because the Emax Hawk was a 5-inch racing drone. It was just a pure racing drone, a great racing drone. But I'm gonna reframe in my mind, and I think it's gonna help, Blunty. No, it's not helping. It's not helping, Blunty, because the problem is that for this size class to really work, it needs to be lighter. Like the Amagod 250 was the first sort of micro 5-inch that I thought was really good. And even then, those 5-inch props break those 2004 motors pretty easily. So now we're adding weight. How much weight have we added? I can't find a weight spec for the 5-inch.
I don't. Yeah, I can't either.
But it's going to be 300 grams or 350 grams or something. So we've added weight, which is going to make the motors take even harder hits. If you didn't plan to crash it a lot, why wouldn't you just, I don't know. I guess there aren't a lot of bind and flies with HD0. This is one of the only 5-inch bind and flies you can buy with HD0 in it, if not the only. If you're looking for a 5-inch bind and fly with HD0 in it, this is one. It probably flies pretty good, but the motors are not going to be super durable in crashes. So don't take it to a race day and beat the shit out of it, but maybe it's good for just flying around the park and having a good time.
So Emax says the 5-inch HD0 version is 167. So if you put an 850 on that, it's going to be
267.
Like to like 280. Yeah, somewhere in there. 267, 280.
That's not.
So it's not horrible.
That's not horrible.
Again, though, like I said, my problem is like, why do you call it a racing drone?
Yeah.
Why do you have 2004 1600 kV on a racing drone?
As long as you're not going to be under 250 grams, why don't you go with like a 2104? You know, or a 2005.
Yeah,
because they want to use the same motors on the 3.5-inch, so they don't have to maintain two products. Yeah,
I guess.
Interesting.
Well, they're different KVs, though, right? So,
well, that's just windings, though. You don't have to make a whole new stator. I bet you that's just a wind. Add or remove a winding. That's easy to do. But if it was a different stator diameter, then it'd be a completely different motor. We got one more, Blunty, and when I saw this, I was like, Aikon. What does Aikon make?
Aikon makes ESCs.
Very, very good ESCs. And flight controllers. But mostly they're known for making very good, high-quality ESCs. Well, apparently they've decided to make a Cinewhoop. The Aikon Geek. It's a 3.5-inch Cinewhoop. I gotta say, I kind of like the design.
It looks really nice. I think we have a similar issue to what we've talked about previously, which is just that, well, this one isn't so bad, but like there's only one step down. Basically, they split the ducts off, right? Mm-hmm. So like you've got the drop down to the ducts, and the ducts are like a separate piece. Yeah. And that attaches to the front, it looks like, to the front camera cage maybe under that as well. It's hard to tell. So
Yeah.
that'd be
I
my
do
only
like
concern
this.
there.
I like this general style of frame, like the GepRC Cinelog, but the GepRC Cinelog is plastic, if my memory is correct. Here they're going with carbon, which is going to help a little bit, I think, on repairability. Camera Butter has a new motor he emailed me about. We should just do a motors section where we go. That exists. People will be mad because they won't get the joke and they'll think we're just being haters.
I mean, that's my thing I say about every fucking motor that comes out, man. I just don't, I don't understand. Like, there's so much time and development and energy and other things that could be done with this fucking effort. And instead we're, like, making another goddamn size of motor with hearts in it. Or, I don't know. It just annoys the shit out of me.
Yep. I mean, cool.
Nobody cares. Like, that's my...
They do care, though. They do care.
Nobody really
just
cares.
You don't care.
No, it's just
do.
new. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's just new. It's something to care about. They only care because there's nothing else. That's my point. Like, it's not because it's, like, super exciting or amazing or it's the best thing they've ever flown or whatever. In 3 months, that'll be another thing because it's the other cool thing. It's got a different cutout and some other fucking person made it. Like, that's the problem. It's not an actual better motor. Like, how many people stick with one motor that was that good motor for that month? 0 fucking people. Like, maybe there's a couple people who have a good motor that they've always bought forever, and it came out 1 month and it was special, and that's the one they now own forever. But most people don't do that. They, like, buy this bullshit hype of the month motor and say it's the best, and then 3 months later, another motor that's the same goddamn motor with another shell on it from another person with another color. It's very frustrating.
Like, it's a T motor. It's 2306.3. Like, I'm sure that 0.3 millimeters is exactly what makes this motor so unique.
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult because, like, there's not a lot. Like, I guess basically what you said, there's not a lot of point to going through the same motor every month, right? Which is essentially what we can see from our side. Like, that's what you read from the specs. And there's not a lot of reason to believe that there's some magically changed technology in the motors, especially when they're not describing it. You know, like, we just get some, like, assumption that it's the same thing. But it's like, our heart's the best for crash resistance? Probably not. Like, so
in terms of, like, the design of the bell, in terms of strength versus
weight. Are they the best for weight? Yeah, like,
no, people are buying this motor because they like SLAT, and they want to support SLAT, and they think the motor looks
SLAT,
cool.
SLAT, open a Patreon if you don't have whatever needs to happen, and then buy a normal motor. Like, that would be my, like, support the creator. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't know. Like, make the best motor you can make. Don't make any sacrifices and make it the cheapest possible and, like, mass produce them so that we can all fly the best motors. Like, there's a lot of reasons I think that, like, these small batch runs of a custom motor that you can't find replacements for that, like,
because
there's 100 reasons why these are not a good idea to me. Like, that's all, you know.
Because T Motor didn't, like, make a whole brand new motor for SLAT, I think.
Yeah.
They took their F40, maybe a custom wine. You got your choice of, and I'm not picking on SLAT here. I've just seen how this goes. When a pilot makes a custom motor, the motor manufacturer wants to do the least amount of work possible to make the pilot happy and to get a motor on the market that people will buy because they like the pilot. At least the Camera Butter motor has done something interesting in that they have a 2406, 2407. 2406, which is a fairly distinct size. You don't see a lot of those out there, you know? So they're doing something different. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. You got a little bit more diameter than a 2306. So probably a little more volume, a little more torque, and a little better cooling.
Yeah.
It's somewhere between a 2207 and a 2208. So the question you could ask when looking at this Camera Butter motor is, in terms of stator volume, you're very close to a 2207, but a 2207 is going to have a smaller diameter, so less rotational mass, so it'll be more responsive, all else being equal. But not as good cooling. But usually in this size of motor, cooling is not what's limiting your performance. So then, what's the point? Hard to say. 9mm bearings. We didn't go up to 10mm bearings. That wider stator might have given us a little more room to use larger bearings, but I just don't know how you can actually judge these claims. Certainly not in a new product roundup like this, Blunty, where we're not taking the time to really dive deep and test the motors and so forth. So here's what I think we should do, Blunty, is we should acknowledge that these motors exist and that the scope of the new product roundup doesn't really let us judge the sort of qualitative claims like smooth, butter smooth, etc. But we can certainly look at the specs of the motors and think about how they stack up to other things, I guess. $25, $26 for the slat, $27 for the camera butter. Oh, and we got this new motor. This motor is a limited run by a guy named the FPV Dad. He worked with whoever this is to make this motor. It's like he only did a run of 500. I'm not sure what's going on here. 2306, 2120 kV. It's only $20, so that's something. Looks a lot like a T-motor. I don't think T-motor OEMs this. Oh, ouch, ouch. 6061 aluminum. That's unfortunate. N55. I don't even think that's an even stronger magnet than N52. NSK bearing. That's nice.
All I would say is, unless somebody's doing them a favor, I would assume that you're going to have a worse quality motor because you have a 500 batch.
Yeah, right. So we know for a fact that he didn't get as good a pricing on a 500 quantity batch as if he had done 2,000 or 5,000.
Yes, he's either taking a really hard cut on it or he got, whatever the case is. But there's unfortunately going to be some loss there when you run a small batch. But
I mean, it's a 2306, 2120 kV. At least he doesn't say a bunch of other bullshit about it being poppy, smooth, buttery, bubblegum, flippity flop. It's a two-piece bell. NSK bearing is good. High temp enamel wire is good. N55 magnet is, I'm not sure what that is. I'm skeptical that that's actually a thing. I think that might be made up marketing. I don't think that magnet ratings go that high, but maybe it's got a stronger magnet, which would reduce the KV. Of course, you could make that up with wines. And 6061 aluminum seems like the main place that they cut corners. And they also haven't finished the web page, unfortunately. Image with text. So, alrighty. Well, that's motors. That's motors. Freestyle smooth motor. Is it? Is it, though?
We should just make a motor that's like, this is the best FPV motor. There's nothing else you can say. This motor is the best for all kinds of flight. This is why the motor is the best. And you just make paragraphs about it and you just lie because there's nothing you can do to prove it wrong. It's all subjective.
Yeah, like when we, I don't remember which motor it was, but there was a motor a little while back that had a larger air gap. And the idea was that made the motor less powerful, but it increased its durability because if you got like a little dirt in there, if you banged it slightly, it wouldn't scrub. And the increased air gap made the motor run smoother because it wasn't as notchy, because the magnetic field was just a little bit weaker overall, so it wasn't as notchy. I mean, again, and we know that we can get smooth flight out of all kinds of different motors, so the idea that this motor is like smoother, I mean, any motor should be pretty smooth out the gate, right? But at least there was some design choice made to back that up. But when you just say, look, here's a 2306 motor and it's smooth, I'm like, why? What is it about it that makes it smooth or durable? Like,
nothing.
Show
it's
me what's
motor.
going on here.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the case. Like, it's not that special. Like, there's no magic in there. That's the problem. If there was magic, this would be a different conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, as we discussed last month, a lot of people just like bling. And if you like bling, then these are blingy motors. They're nice-looking motors, and Slat's a good dude and deserves your support. But maybe just sign up to his Patreon or PayPal him or Cash App him something, and then buy whatever motor you actually want.
Yes, that's sort of where I'm at. So let's not make compromises on gear to like support a creator. I don't know. That's why I will never have blunty motors, so unless there's some magic that happens that somebody
Not
can
with
do.
that attitude, you won't. I'm guessing Slat gets between $2 and $5 for these motors. I know that's a wide range. I think 5 would be pretty extreme, and 2 would be pretty typical. So if you wanna guilt free, just send Slat some money and buy whatever motor you want. Alrighty, well, that's this month's shitting on other people's motors because we're haters who don't appreciate the finer points of flying.
Yep.
We are coming to the end, Blunty. We've got just a couple more sections to go before we get to the giveaway. We decide what item we're going to give away this month. The next section is batteries and charging accessories. And I want to know what you think of this.
All right. Lumenier Power Bank Pro 225. So let's see what we've got in the specs department on this guy. So got 27,000 milliamp hour capacity at, so it says 18 to 25 volt, 9 amp max, 225 watts.
Yeah. So part of what makes this unique is that it is a standard USB-C power bank, 27,000 milliamp hours, but it also can output via an XT60, basically 6S voltage, I believe, at 9 amps, 225 watts. So you can plug it in on the side here. It's a little hard. This image is not very clear. Here we go. You can plug it in on the side here, and you can actually run a charger off of it. That's their selling point.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, how many batteries are you going to get off of this?
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to figure out. So what's the actual math on that?
Well, they make it easy because they give you the watt hours. 97.2 watt hours is the capacity.
So what is that, like 3 6S packs?
Yeah, like a typical 5-inch flight pack, like a 1,000 milliamp hour 6S or a 1,300 milliamp hour 4S, is about 22 watt hours. So I think you could get about 4, maybe 5 if they weren't fully discharged. So
yeah. I think the price just doesn't make any sense.
This is where I wanted to get your opinion too, because it's cool. But here's the thing. Let's look for a similar power bank, okay? So I'm going to go to Amazon and USB power bank. Now, we got to try to make it feature comparable. So in addition to the standard USB, we've got a USB-C. I think it's got USB power delivery. It is 100-watt USB PD, which is pretty impressive. 100-watt fast charging.
I kind of get what you're saying, but how many... I mean, if you're buying it to charge packs, like, maybe you don't need all those features, but yes.
Well, right. So here is a 50,000 milliamp hour power bank.
Where's the watt hour? We can't be believing that.
It's always 1S. Isn't it always? I think it's always 1S. So that they inflate the number as much. So I think that's comparable. So it's twice as big. It's roughly twice as big with 100 watts. It's $250. So that's a lot more expensive. 100. So let's see if we can find something closer in price. What about if we do a max price of $200? 100-watt USB-C, 20,000 milliamp hour, $100. This is 27,000 milliamp hour. It's half the price.
Yeah. So it's not a crazy price, I guess.
Here we go. 100-watt. This is the same watt hours. Only 45-watt power delivery with 100-watt AC output. So it's got an inverter built in. $200. Interesting.
Also, the problem is we're on Amazon. So, like...
Where should we be?
Well, it's just how many of these are going to be real when you get them. Like, if it says 26,000 milliamp hours, is it actually going to be that? Like, I mean, or are they all labeled cells that say 3,000, but they're actually like 1,500 because they're wrong?
There's no way to know. I mean, I guarantee you they're just buying 217500 size cells and packing them together into a 6S array or something. So, like, there's no way to know what the quality of the cells. But I mean, that's true for the Lumenier. We haven't tested the Lumenier one either, so we're just taking the specs at their word. I
would hope, and maybe that's part of the pricing and the whole thing here, but I would hope that you're like from something from Lumenier, I hope you're paying for the actual watt hours they're selling you. Which is, I could not say the same about Amazon. I feel like Amazon's getting more and more like, hey, this is not what it says it is at all. But the other thing I would say is, like, are there other solutions? Like, I mean, if you're really needing to charge 5 extra packs at the field, like, what are you doing that is so valuable? Like, you could buy 5 packs for that price, like, right? So, like, and then you could just bring them pre-charged. There's I don't know. I feel like it seems weird to spend $170 to charge 4 or 5 extra packs at the field, unless you're a very specific person. That's what I would say.
That's why I wanted to compare it to other power banks that don't have the XT60 output. Because, like, if this power bank is worth $170 by itself, then the fact that it has an XT60 that can charge packs in the field or whatever else you want to do with it, that's okay. That's just a bonus. And it does look, especially if you need that 100-watt USB-C, it does look like it's...
like sort of comparable. Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, this one here to me looks like the closest. We have 20,000 milliamp hours, which is only 2/3 the size, but it is also about 2/3 the price. So this looks comparable and doesn't have the wireless charging and doesn't have the XT60 output. So it seems like this is not overpriced compared to other stuff out there with similar features.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if it'll matter, but that looked like it was pillow cell.
That's a good point. Yeah. No, you're right. These are worse cells, aren't they? Compared to 217500s.
It's going to be some random Chinese wrapped pillow cell instead of whatever random wrapped, I guess, lithium ion they're buying, but like 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my big question. Is this price parity with other USB power banks?
If you're already in the market, if you think that, like, if you're trying to buy a USB power bank, I get that. If we're talking about, like, does this make sense for somebody to buy to charge packs at the field? I think that's a different question. And then, no, it doesn't make any sense for me.
Because there's better ways to charge in the field. You could probably just go buy a 6S 10,000 milliamp hour battery for $100 or something. I don't know. I'm making up numbers. If all you want is field charging, there are more cost-effective ways to do it. But if you're looking for a USB power bank, especially if you want that 100-watt USB power delivery, like to run your soldering iron, your USB soldering iron or something, or to charge your MacBook, then this looks like a pretty decent deal. How about that? I'm a little skeptical. I was expected it to be overpriced, but it turns out that it's not.
Doesn't seem too bad.
Good. All right, Lumenier. What are you doing, Lumenier? You're just making the CyberMech LED thing. They just make these weird products. Look at this, Blunty. You can buy Lumenier branded carbon fiber sheet, 400 by 500 millimeters. Why does Lumenier sell carbon fiber sheet? I have no idea.
I mean, people got CNC at their house. I wonder how these are, like, priced, though. I wonder if these are worth the price.
I have no idea. But there you go. All righty, Lumenier. Good job with your power bank. Let's see,
Somebody
Blunty.
tell us if that carbon fiber is worth the price.
Yeah, tell us in the comments if that carbon fiber is overpriced. I mean, anything's going to be overpriced if you're buying one sheet at a time, but maybe somebody in the comments knows. We got a charger this month, Blunty, a new charger from ISDT, the ISDT P20. Like with any charger, you know what I'm going to say. How does it compare to the best charger you can possibly buy for the money? The Hoda D6 Pro. I'm a broken record.
Especially this price. We got to look.
What do you think, Blunty? How do they stack up?
It actually seems pretty well featured. 500 watts. So we get, I think it's two 250 channels.
We
got discharge current of 1.5 amp per. We got charging current of 20 amp per.
It says 500 watts times 2. Is that 1,000 watts? Total?
It's listed as a 500 watt charger. That's interesting.
Usually that means 500 watts divided by 2, not 500 watts per channel.
I'm going to guess that's 250. Oh, it says maximum charging up to 500 for a single port.
Oh, okay. I see. So 500 watts total divided between the two channels, however you divide it up. But max of 500.
It says built-in high-speed synchronous processor. What? balanced 2-channel charging. Maximum
look.
parallel charging power 800 watts.
So it is 500 watts per channel.
Sort of.
You could charge 500 watts on a single channel or
Yeah.
800 watts on both channels.
That's interesting that they would market it like that.
Oh, that's something.
It seems pretty good for the price.
If you need high power charging, it's, by the way, and it is DC only, right? It doesn't have a power supply.
That would be correct.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's, of course, going to make it completely not the same comparison to the D6 Pro.
That's right. The D6, right? That's what we want. That's
Well, I think the D6 is actually, I don't know if they're making it
So it's
anymore.
now the S6? Is that the S6 now?
So the S6 also has a built-in power supply.
Oh.
So we need a DC only charger. Yeah, go
This
ahead.
might be it, right?
Maybe. But Blunty, going back to the question about the charger's capacity, the big question is, do you need a 500 watt charger? And most people don't, because unless you're doing really big batteries, like for big fixed wings or big helis, or if you're doing parallel charging where you're charging 6 or 10 batteries at once, you simply cannot charge this battery at 500 watts without blowing it up. And that's the big limitation. In fact, I just did a video where I made a spreadsheet where you stick your charger specs in there and it tells you if your charger is like too big. Let's do that with this charger. I'll put a link to that video down below if people want to check that out. But let's see here. How big of a LiPo charger do you need? So what kind of battery are we charging, Blunty?
6S 1300, right?
Okay, 1300 milliamp hour, 6S. LiPo, the watt rating of the charger is 500 watts. The amp rating of the charger is, I think it's 15 amps. No, 35 amps. Yikes. That's a beefy charger.
It says, charging current is 25 amps times 2, but I guess technically it's 35 on 1 is how they're doing it. Yeah, max input current is DC 35.
Okay, so 25
charging
amps.
Current is 20 times 2. I don't know. It's confusing.
And then we have to make a guess. We have to make some assumptions about what power supply we're using. What power supply do you have at your house that you use to charge off of? Do you have a separate power supply?
Yeah, I use the Xbox power supply, so I think it's 24 volt.
24 volts, I think it's 350 watts?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, right in that pocket.
Input amp rating of the charger is 35 amps, and we're just going to guess at the efficiency rating of the power supply. We don't know. Conclusions. Is your power supply watt rating limiting your max possible charge rate? Yes. So you would need almost 1,000 watt power supply to max this charger out, but yours is only 350 watts.
Oh, right. Yeah, so that's going to be a limiting factor for a lot of people, is just having a big enough power supply to even run this thing.
Correct. If you don't have at least 1,000 watt power supply, and probably you'd want more, just because you want some headroom on your power supply.
Yeah. So you
then you're
need
not going
to. Well, can this even do 48 in? No, it can't. So it's just 34 in max. So
right.
You're going to need a beefy power supply.
Yes. You're running at 24 volts, so you wouldn't really benefit by increasing that. If somebody was running off a 12 volt power supply, they would also not be able to max it out. But more fundamentally, based on the charger's watt rating of 500 watts, we could charge this battery at 20 amps, which would be a charge rate of 15 C, which is just about the charge rate I use when I want to blow batteries up. It's way too fast.
So you could charge 7 of these batteries parallel charged at 2C, or 15 of them at 1C sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the thing, So if you're only charging a single battery, this is just dramatic overkill. But if we said 1,300 times 6 on a parallel charge board, now that's only 2.2 C.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you need this charger?
Most people
depends
don't.
on what you're trying to charge.
Yeah.
And if you want one with a built-in power supply, definitely have a look at the Hoda S6. I've got a review of that, which was probably already out on my channel at the time that you're watching this. And we covered that in last month's. In fact, that was the giveaway item for last month's new product roundup. The S6 has a 400 watt power supply built in, which is, that's pretty convenient to not have to have a separate power supply. So we finally found something that the D6 wasn't the perfect thing for. We got one more item, Blunty. I think you put this on the roundup. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, we talked about the TX16 Mark II, and now we've got the TX12 Mark II radio from Radiomaster. So this is their improved version of the TX12 with the ELRS internal option that a lot of people are asking for. So now if you like a little bit of the smaller form factor radio, this is sort of between a larger gamepad, a smaller gamepad style radio and a larger I don't know, what do you call them?
This is standard. Just call them standard radios. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of between those.
I got this picture here with a person's hand on it, so you can kind of have a sense of how big it is. The T12 to me is a little bit of it's a little divisive because I prefer a bigger radio. I find the T12 to be a little uncomfortable to use. I don't have particularly big hands. It's just what I'm used to. But a lot of people who want a smaller radio, like people who travel a lot, but they don't want to go all the way down to a gamepad style radio, or kids and small adults with small hands, really like the smaller size of the TX12. And it's got Edge TX and Radiomaster build quality, and now the option to have Express LRS built in. So if that's you, then and it's only $100, so it's cheaper too. Here we go. Here's a great picture of someone's hand holding it.
Trying to find a comparison. I guess it's a little smaller than a Mambo, right? Because Mambo seems a little smaller than a full-size radio. So maybe it's a little step down from that. So gimbals look a little closer.
Yep, I agree. One thing I got to point out, Blunty, somebody emailed me. He was mad at me. He said, I bought the JB Radiomaster TX16S, wanted to support you, Bardwell, buy your product, and I can't get it to bind to my FreeSky receivers. And I said, it doesn't do that. It has an Express LRS radio. And he's like, he started cussing me and was like, this is the last time I will buy a Bardwell product. You misled me. And I was like, maybe you can exchange it. I'm sorry. The Express LRS radios only bind to Express LRS receivers unless they also have a 4-in-1 module built in, which there are some of them you can buy that way. But this one, for example, if you buy the Express LRS version, it only binds to Express LRS. And if that wasn't clear, I thought I made that clear in my review of the TX16S, but apparently he missed the memo. So I just want to point that out. We got one more thing, an update to a backpack that I reviewed some time back. The Auline or Auline Drone Pilot FPV backpack V2. It's already back ordered. I thought this was a pretty good backpack, although it didn't end up being my daily driver. It's got this really nice case on the top for your controller, or you could put a quad in there, and you could just get a lot of things in here based on the design. Build quality was pretty solid. Price is about what you expect for this style of backpack. What'd they change in the V2? More room, upgraded magnetic buckles. I did complain about the magnetic buckles letting go too easily. I'm not sure how they've updated them, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Increased
bigger
lateral
side pockets.
Yeah.
New sewing technology.
Oh. So I'll put a link in the video description to my review of the V1 of this, which looks like there's been some changes, but maybe it'll give you a sense of if you like it. I'll also put a link to my review of the iFlight backpack, which is my daily driver, and you can see which one of those you like better. This is a solid choice. It might be my second choice if the iFlight or the Torval wasn't my first choice. So I guess my third choice. And that brings us, Blunty, to the giveaway section. We got to decide what we're going to give away. I always like to pick something that's not too expensive so I can give away several of them. More winners.
QAV-Pro lifter. No. So
we'll give away the $1,000 frame that no one except pros wants to use anyway.
Send us a picture with your face and a red camera so we know you have something to put on.
Yes. You need at least a red Komodo or higher to claim this. No. Yeah. You know what what are you thinking?
ImmersionRC power meter, but the problem is it's being sold out is going to be a concern. They sell out so fast. So
are they actually in stock right now?
I think you can buy them right now if you bought.
Okay, I'm going to buy them right now. I'm going to buy 4 of them. I'm literally buying them as we speak.
Great.
A lot of times I'll just wait and I'll ship stuff to people drop ship, but you're right. They're going to be out of stock.
100%.
Let me check.
They've already gone out of stock in multiple places.
We're going to make sure that I have them before we make this decision. We're not going to put my address and my phone number on in the final video, please. Pay now. That was surprisingly easy.
Hey now.
Hey, oh my God, Blenty. Look, I did it. I'm doing it. I'm doing the eyebrow thing. Oh, there it was. I'm doing it. I've never been able to do that before. You made me make that face. You know, like Stephen Colbert does the, I can't do it on purpose. It's hard. Okay, I've done it. I've purchased 4 of the ImmersionRC RF Power Meter V2. You're 100% right. More people need this, and so many people would never spend $100 on this for themselves, and that's the best present you can get somebody, is something good that they would never buy for themselves. So we're going to give away 4 of the ImmersionRC RF Power Meter. If you want to enter the giveaway, all the way down in the video description, after all the product links, which are, by the way, affiliate links. And if you click those links before you make any purchase at the affiliated vendor, I get a small commission, and it sure does mean a lot. If you just click those links, just doesn't matter which link you click, just click any link to go to the store. Before you do your shopping, I get a little commission. Thank you so much for that. Down below all that stuff is a Google form link that lets you enter the giveaway, as well as the full terms and conditions. I will announce the winner via a pinned comment below this video and a community post on my YouTube page. So if you're wondering if I've drawn the winners yet, if there's no pinned comment down there, I haven't drawn the winners yet. Great. That's a great, I wasn't going to think of that. I'm really glad you thought of that. That's a great idea. That's going to do it for this month. We will see you again next month with more new products and giveaways. Thanks so much for watching.
Bye.